Good morning, and happy Monday. Um, I pray you all had an amazing weekend, and we are gonna jump right into it. We are in Judges. Oh wait, where did we end? Judges 11, right? Yeah. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. Lord, I thank you for this day. I thank you, God, for waking us up this morning. Lord, I just pray that you bring those that need this reading, that need your word, who are trying to grow closer to you, God. I pray, Lord, that you bring them to this video, God. And I pray, God, that you have your way. Let your will be done. In Jesus' name, thank God and amen. And we have had this fly in our basement that we cannot get, and it's driving me nuts. And it's just, seems like it's just the one that just keeps floating around down here. But okay. So here we are. We are in Judges 11. And if you don't know, I read for about a half an hour every day. I've been taking the weekends off just because we're getting ready for school and what have you. So it's just been really crazy. So I've been taking the weekends off, but I do have a playlist from Genesis on through. So go ahead and check that out. You can just listen, study along, read along, whatever you want to do. Just gives you some time with the Lord. And sometimes it's just easier to hear somebody reading it rather than trying to read it yourself. So that's why I'm doing this. And again, God led me to do this. So I kind of jumped off there for a minute and stopped doing it. But I'm trying to be obedient and do what He has called me to do. So here we are. All right. So Judges 11. Now Jephthah the Gileadite was a mighty warrior. Gilead was his father, but he was a prostitute's son. Gilead's wife gave birth to other sons for him. And when his wife's sons grew up, they drove Jephthah away. They told him, "You won't get an inheritance in our father's household because you're a different woman's son." So Jephthah ran away from his brothers and lived in the land of Tob. Worthless men gathered around Jephthah and became his posse. His posse. Sometime afterward, the Ammonites made war against Israel. And when the Ammonites attacked Israel, Gilead's elders went to bring Jephthah back from the land of Tob. They said to him, "Come be our commander so we can fight against the Ammonites." But Jephthah replied to Gilead's elders, "Aren't you the ones who hated me and drove me away from my father's household? Why are you coming to me now when you're in trouble?" Gilead's elders answered Jephthah, "That may be, but now we're turning back to you. So come with us and fight the Ammonites. Then you'll become the leader over us and everyone who lives in Gilead." And Jephthah said and Jephthah said to Gilead's elders, "If you bring me back to fight the Ammonites and the Lord gives them over to me, I alone will be your leader." Gilead's elders replied to him, "The Lord is our witness, we will surely do what you said." So Jephthah went with Gilead's elders, and the people made him leader and commander over them. At Mizpah, before the Lord, Jephthah repeated everything he had said. Then Jephthah sent messages to the Ammonite king, saying, "What is the problem between us that you've come against me to make war in my land?" And the Ammonite king responded to Jephthah's messengers, "When the Israelites were coming up from Egypt, they seized my land from Arnon to the Jabbok and all the way to the Jordan. Now give it back peacefully." Then Jephthah again sent messengers to the Ammonite king and said to him, Jephthah states, "Israel didn't seize the land of the Moabites or the land of the Ammonites. When they were coming up from Egypt, the Israelites went through the desert to the Reed Sea and came to Kadesh. Then the Israelites sent messengers to the king of Edom, saying, 'Please allow us to pass through your land.' But the Edomite king refused. They sent the same request to the king of Moab, and he was unwilling. So the Israelites stayed at Kadesh. Later they journeyed into the desert, but went around the lands of Edom and Moab. arriving on the east side of the land of Moab and setting up camp on the other side of the Arnon. They never entered Moabite territory because the Arnon was the boundary of Moab. Then the Israelites sent messengers to Sihon, king of the Amorites, and king of Heshbon, and said to him, "Please us, please allow us to pass through your land at our own place, to our own place." I'm sorry. Yet Sihon didn't trust the Israelites to pass through his territory. He assembled his entire army, set up camp at Jahaz, and went to war with the Israelites. The Lord, Israel's God, handed over Sihon and his entire army to the Israelites, and they defeated Sihon. So the Israelites took possession of all the land of the Amorites who were living in that area. They took possession of all the Amorite territory from the Arnon to the Jabbok and from the desert to the Jordan. So now that the Lord Israel's God has driven out the Amorites before his people Israel, will you take possession of their land? Shouldn't you possess what Shamash, your God, has given you to possess? And shouldn't we possess everything that the Lord our God has given us to possess? Do you now have a better case than Moab's king Balak, Zippor's son? Did he make an accusation against the Israelites to go? Okay, sorry about this. Hold on. My brain hasn't fully woken up yet. Did he make an accusation against the Israelites or go to war with them? Why didn't you take back this territory while the Israelites lived in Heshbon and its villages, in Aroer and its villages, and in all the towns along the branches of the Arnon for 300 years? I haven't sinned against you, but you're doing me wrong by making war against me. Let the Lord, who is the judge, decide today between the Israelites and the Ammonites. But the Ammonite king refused to listen to the message that Jephthah sent to him. Then the Lord's Spirit came to Jephthah. He passed through Gilead and Manasseh, then through Mizpah in Gilead, and from there he crossed over to the Ammonites. Jephthah made a solemn promise to the Lord. If you will decisively hand over the Ammonites to me, then whatever comes out the doors of my house to meet me when I return victorious from the Ammonites will be given over to the Lord. I will sacrifice it as an entirely burnt offering. Jephthah crossed over to fight the Ammonites, and the Lord handed them over to him. It was an exceptionally great defeat. He defeated 20 towns from Aurora to the area of Manith and on as far as Abel Keramim. So the Ammonites were brought down before the Israelites. But when Jephthah came to his house in Mizpah, it was his daughter who came out to meet him with tambourines and dancing. She was an only child. He had no other son or daughter except her. When he saw her, he tore his clothes and said, "Oh no, my daughter, you have brought me to my knees. You are my agony, for I opened my mouth to the Lord, and I can't take it back." But she replied to him, "My father, you've opened your mouth to the Lord, so you should do to me just what you've promised. After all, the Lord has carried out just punishment for you on your enemies, the Ammonites." Then she said to her father, let this one thing be done for me. Hold off for 2 months and let me and my friends wander the hills in sadness, crying over the fact that I never had children. Go, he responded, and he sent her away for 2 months. She and her friends walked on the hills and cried because she would never have children. When 2 months had passed, she returned to her father, and he did to her what he had promised. She had not known a man intimately, but she gave rise to a tradition in Israel where, for 4 days every year, Israelite daughters would go away to recount the story of the Gileadite Jephthah's daughter. The Ephraimites were called up for battle and crossed over to Zaphon. They said to Jephthah, "Why did you cross over to fight the Ammonites and not call us to go with you? We're going to burn down your house over you." Jephthah replied to them, "My people and I were in great conflict with the Ammonites, but when I cried out to you, you didn't rescue me from their power. When I saw that you weren't going to rescue me, I risked my own life and crossed over against the Ammonites, and the Lord handed them over to me. So why have you marched against me today to fight me?" So Jephthah gathered all the men of Gilead and fought the Ephraimites. The Gileadites defeated the Ephraimites because they had said, "You are fugitives from Ephraim." Gilead stands with Ephraim and Manasseh. The Gileadites took control of the Jordan's crossing points in Ephraim. Whenever one of the Ephraimite fugitives said, "Let me cross," the Gileadites would ask him, "Are you an Ephraimite?" If he said no, they would tell him, "Then say Shibboleth." But he would say Sibboleth because he couldn't pronounce it correctly. So they would seize him and kill him at the Jordan's crossing. 42,000 of the Ephraimites fell at that time. Jephthah led Israel for 6 years. Then Jephthah the Gileadite died and was buried in one of the towns in Gilead. After Jephthah, Ibzan from Bethlehem led Israel. He had 30 sons and 30 daughters. He married his 30 daughters to those outside his clan and brought in 30 young women from outside for his sons. He led Israel for 7 years. Then Ibzan died and was buried in Bethlehem. After Ibzan, Elon from Zebulun led Israel. He did so for 10 years. Then Elon the Zebulunite died and was buried in Aijalon in the land of Zebulun. After Elon, Abdon, Hillel's son from Pirathon, led Israel. He had 40 sons and 30 grandsons mounted on 70 donkeys. He led Israel for 8 years. Then Abdon, Hillel's son from Pirathon, died and was buried in Pirathon in the land of Ephraim, in the Amalekite highlands. The Israelites again did things that the Lord saw as evil, and he handed them over to the Philistines for 40 years. Now there was a certain man from Zorah, from the Danite clan, whose name was Manoah. His wife was unable to become pregnant and had not given birth to any children. The Lord's messenger appeared to the woman and said to her, "Even though you've been unable to become pregnant and haven't given birth, you are now pregnant and will give birth to a son. Now be careful not to drink wine or brandy or to eat anything that is ritually unclean, because you are pregnant and will give birth to a son. Don't allow a razor to shave his head, because the boy is going to be a Nazirite for God from birth. He'll be the one who begins Israel's rescue from the power of the Philistines." Then the woman went and told her husband, "A man of God came to me, and he looked like God's messenger, very scary. I didn't ask him where he was from, and he didn't tell me his name. He said to me, 'You are pregnant and will give birth to a son, so don't drink wine or brandy or eat anything that is ritually unclean, because the boy is going to be a Nazirite for God from birth until the day he dies.'" Manoah asked the Lord, "Please, my Lord," he said, "let the man of God whom you sent come back to us once more, so he can teach us how we should treat the boy who is to be born." God listened to Manoah, and God's messenger came once more to the woman. She was sitting in the field, but her husband Manoah wasn't with her. So the woman hurriedly ran and informed her husband. She said to him, "The man who came to me the other day has just appeared to me." Manoah got up and followed his wife. He came to the man and said to him, "Are you the man who spoke to this woman?" "I am," he replied. Manoah said, "Now when your words come true, what should be the rules for the boy, and how should he act?" The Lord's messenger answered Manoah, "The woman should be careful to do everything that I told her. She must not consume anything that comes from the grapevine, drink wine or brandy, or eat anything that is ritually unclean. She must be careful to do everything I have commanded her." Manoah said to the Lord's messenger, "Please let us persuade you to stay so that we can prepare a young goat for you." But the Lord's messenger replied to Manoah, "If you persuaded me to stay, I wouldn't eat your food. If you prepare an entirely burnt offering, offer it to the Lord." Indeed, Manoah didn't know that he was the Lord's messenger. Manoah said to the Lord's messenger, "What's your name, so that we may honor you when your words come true?" Why do you The Lord's messenger responded to him, "Why do you ask my name? You couldn't understand it." So Manoah took a young goat and a grain offering and offered them on the rock to the Lord. While Manoah and his wife were looking, an amazing thing happened. As the flame from the altar went up toward the sky, the Lord's messenger went up in the altar's flame. When Manoah and his wife saw this, they fell face down on the ground. The Lord's messenger didn't reappear to Manoah or his wife, and Manoah then realized that it had been the Lord's messenger. Manoah said to his wife, "We are certainly going to die because we've seen God." But his wife replied to him, "If the Lord wanted to kill us, If the Lord wanted to kill us, he wouldn't have accepted the entirely burnt offering and grain offering from our hands. He wouldn't have shown us all these things or told us all of this now." The woman gave birth to a son and named him Samson. The boy grew up, and the Lord blessed him. The Lord's Spirit began to move him when he was in Mahane Dan, between Zorah and Eshtaol. Samson traveled down the Timnah. While he was in Timnah, a Philistine woman caught his eye. He went back home and told his father and mother, "A Philistine woman in Timnah caught my eye. Now get her for me as a wife." But his father and mother replied to him, "Is there no woman among your own relatives or among all our people that you have to go get a wife from the uncircumcised Philistines?" Yet Samson said to his father, "Get her for me, because she's the one I want." His father and mother didn't know that the Lord was behind this. He was looking for an opening with the Philistines, because they were ruling over Israel at that time. Then Samson traveled down to Timnah with his father and mother. When he came to the vineyards of Timnah, suddenly a lone young lion came roaring to meet him. The Lord's Spirit rushed over him, and he tore the lion apart with his bare hands as one might tear apart a young goat. But he didn't tell his father and mother what he had done. Then he traveled down and talked with the woman. She was the one Samson wanted. After a while, he came back again to marry her. He turned aside to look at the lion's remains, and there was a swarm of bees with honey inside the lion's skeleton. He scooped the honey into his hands, eating it as he continued along. When he got to his father and mother, he gave some to them, and they ate it too. But he didn't tell them that he had scooped the honey from the lion's skeleton. His father traveled down to the woman, and Samson put on a feast there, as was the custom for young men. When the townspeople saw him, they selected 30 companions to be with him. Then Samson said to them, "Let me tell you a riddle. If you can figure it out and tell me the answer within the 7 days of the feast, I'll give you 30 linen robes and 30 sets of clothes. But if you can't tell me the answer, then it's you who have to give me 30 linen robes and 30 sets of clothes." Just a second. So they replied to him, "Tell your riddle, let's hear it." He said to them, "Out of the eater there came something to eat. Out of the strong there came something sweet." For 3 days they couldn't tell the answer of the riddle. On the 4th day, they said to Samson's wife, "Seduce your husband so he'll tell us the answer to the riddle, or else we'll set fire to you and your household. Were we invited here just to become poor?" So Samson's wife cried on his shoulder and said, "You hate me. You don't love me. You told a riddle to my people, but didn't tell me the answer. He replied to her, "Look, I haven't even told the answer to my father and mother. Why should I tell it to you?" But she cried on his shoulder for the rest of the 7 days of the feast. Finally, on the seventh day, he told her the answer, for she had nagged him. And she told her people the answer to the riddle. So on the seventh day, before the sun set, the townspeople said to him, "What's sweeter than honey? What's stronger than a lion?" He replied to them, if you hadn't plowed with my heifer, you wouldn't have figured out my riddle." Then the Lord's Spirit rushed over him, and he went down to Ashkelon. He killed 30 of their men, stripped them of their gear, and gave the sets of clothes to the ones who had told the answer to the riddle. In anger, he went back up to his father's household, and Samson's wife married one of those who had been his companions. I'll read 15. Later on, at the time of the wheat harvest, Samson went to visit his wife, bringing along a young goat. He said, "Let me go into my wife's bedroom." But her father wouldn't allow him to go in. Her father said, "I was so sure that you had completely rejected her that I gave her in marriage to one of your companions. Don't you think her younger sister is even better? Let her be your wife instead." Samson replied, "No one can blame me now for being ready to bring down trouble on the Philistines." Then Samson went and caught 300 foxes. He took torches, turned the fox's tail to tail, and put a torch between each pair of tails. He lit the torches and released the fox into the Philistines' grain fields. So he burned the stacked grain, standing grain, vineyards, and oil orchards. The Philistines inquired, "Who did this?" So it was reported, "Samson, the Timnite son-in-law, did it, because his father-in-law gave his wife in marriage to one of his companions." So the Philistines went up and burned her and her father to death. Samson then responded to them, "If this is how you act, then I won't stop until I get revenge on you." He struck them hard, taking their legs right out from under them. Then he traveled down and stayed in a cave on the rock of Etam. The Philistines marched up, made camp in Judah, and released their forces on Lehi or Lehi. Lehi. The people of Judah asked, "Why have you marched up against us?" "We've marched up to take Samson prisoner," they replied, "and to do to him just what he did to us." So 3,000 people from Judah traveled down to the cave in the rock at Etam and said to Samson, "Don't you realize that the Philistines rule over us? What have you done to us?" But he told them, "I did to them just what they did to me." Then the people of Judah said to him, we've come down to take you prisoner so we can turn you over to the Philistines." Samson responded to them, "Just promise that you won't attack me yourselves." "We won't," they said to him. "We'll only take you prisoner so we can turn you over to them. We won't kill you." Then they tied him up with 2 new ropes and brought him up from the rock. When Samson arrived at Lehi, the Philistines met him and came out shouting. The Lord's Spirit rushed over him. The ropes on his arms became like burned up linen, and the ties melted right off his hands. He found a donkey's fresh jawbone, picked it up, and used it to attack 1,000 men. Samson said, "With a donkey's jawbone, stacks on stacks. With a donkey's jawbone, I've killed 1,000 men." When he finished speaking, he tossed away the jawbone, so that place became known as Ramath Lehi. Now Samson was very thirsty, so he called out to the Lord, "You are the one who allowed this great victory to be accomplished by your servant's hand. Am I now going to die of thirst and fall into the hands of the uncircumcised?" So God split open the hollow rock in Lehi, and water flowed out of it. When Samson drank, His energy returned and he was recharged. Thus, that place is still called by the name En Hakor in Lehi today. Samson led Israel for 20 years during the time of the Philistines. And I'm going to go ahead and stop there. I think I might be able to finish this tomorrow and we can jump into Ruth on Wednesday. Um, so that is it for today, guys. I pray that you all have an amazing day. Be blessed and be the reason someone smiles. And if you have any prayer requests, any questions, or anything like that, leave them down below or you can email me. My information is in the description box. Again, that's it. Be blessed and be the reason someone smiles. Bye.